we are extremely excited about this session. It's something we've been hard at work. We're going to talk about how we're leveraging Agentforce to allow you to configure your Salesforce data model. Before we begin, I'm sure you've seen this slide many times. What we're about to show you is under active development, so please make sure to make any purchasing decisions based on what's generally available today. First off, again, we want to thank you for being here. And again, we're very excited to show you the work we're doing. My name is Gonzalo Gambino. I'm a product manager here at Salesforce within the platform, schema, and metadata space. And I'm accompanied here by Jackie, who is an engineer on my team, and she's been the lead working on what we're about to show you. So, raise the hands. How many builders do I have in the audience? Admins, developers, architects? Okay. Hopefully this slide resonates with you, right? In your day-to-day, you have a lot of different jobs and tasks that you have to handle, all the way from determining your data strategy and figuring out your data model, managing user access and permissioning, right? Leveraging Flow for automation, and building user interfaces. And these are just some of the high-level tasks. But at moments, it can feel like you're juggling lots of things at one time. And this doesn't even take into account all the net new innovation that is constantly hitting you, whether it be Data Cloud, Agentforce, right? It's a lot to consume. And you really need to stay focused on what's high value and kind of remove the low-level tasks. Let's double click into what data modeling looks like today. And this is from several conversations with customers and from our research too. If we take a step back, we can think of data modeling as two phases. First one's planning, and then the second one's building. And we see a lot of folks, rightly so, spending a lot of time in the planning phase before they move on to actually creation. So in planning, right, you're going to be defining your actual data model. This is taking in your business requirements, working with all your stakeholders, and then figuring out what that data model is actually going to look like. A lot of our customers today use spreadsheets and documents for this phase, again, which can be very manual and time-consuming. Once you've got that data model figured out, right, then you can move on to the build phase. This is where you're actually creating the schema. This is where you're actually creating the metadata, the objects, the fields, the relationships. Once you've done that, you need to ensure data integrity, right? Whether it be managing pick lists or validation or setting any other attributes within your data model. And then lastly, a data model is never stale, right? As business requirements evolve and change, you're also going to be going in and updating your data model and making changes. And to do all this stuff, there are existing tools that I'm hoping many of you know and have leveraged over time. Object Manager, right? Point and click solution, Schema Builder to visualize your data model, and then we have metadata and tooling APIs to programmatically make these changes as well. Now, all this is fine and good, but I'm sure many of you have also realized as you move up in terms of complexity of your data model, you can have a lot of time being spent on this end-to-end phase here, right? Anywhere from just a simple model with 1 to 2 objects, all the way to something more complex with 5+ objects, lots of fields, lots of dependencies. You might need junction objects, right? And you know, depending how seasoned or not you are, like this could take anywhere from minutes to hours to even days to get it all the way end to end. What if we had a better way of doing this? One other thing I'd like to point out, I'm sure as many of you know, AI is changing the way we build, right? We've been used to, up till now, very much so to this point and click experience. Object Manager is an example here. But with AI, it's really all moving to conversation, right? Natural language, whether it be typed or with voice, and that's really changing the experience of how you can interact with software. So with that, we are super excited and happy to introduce that we've been hard at work here with Jackie taking the lead on building our own data modeling agent built on top of Agentforce. Now, this means that you can use natural language, right, to do that end-to-end phase, all the way from generating data model to actually creating your schema using this data modeling agent. No clicks required. Not only that, now you have an agent who's going to help you along the way too, right? And it's going to be grounded on your existing schema within your org, and we're also going to be feeding it unstructured data, such as our help documents and data modeling best practices. That means it's going to be your partner in helping you figure out that perfect data model, helping you out with that initial planning stage as well. And last but not least, we also know, right, when you're making changes, especially when it comes to schema, that you could have dependencies. You also want to know what you're impacting as you're making changes. So the other piece here is we're going to be adding functionality to let you know when you're making changes what type of impact you're having, so then you can resolve those as you see fit. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, who's going to walk you through a demo of this.
Thanks, Gonzalo. I'm super excited to show you what we've been working on. Well, first, imagine you're an admin and you've been tasked with building a data model for some property management app, so something to manage rental properties. Traditionally, this would mean going into Object Manager or the metadata API, deploying a bunch of custom objects, custom fields, relationships. But I'm going to show you how to create an entire data model with Agentforce with just a normal conversation. So here is the out-of-the-box Agentforce. Here's the out-of-the-box Agentforce agent. We're going to start here. You could use this. You could do this with any agent. It could be custom. You could build your own. I'm just going to go and open this up in Builder. And the agent builder is where you test and configure your agents. On the left-hand side here, you're going to see some topics. Some of them are out of the box and pre-configured with this agent. I'm going to click on the data model management topic, which I've pre-configured already. There's a description, a scope, a list of instructions. This is just going to help the reasoning agent pick the correct topic. And I want to point us to the topic's actions. So here are these two actions. There's a create and a generate data model action. This is what we've been working on. This is what I'm super excited to show you. So let's see how this works. I'm going to just go back and get a little prompt. And we're going to put into this chat window, I need a data model for a property management app to track rental properties, tenants, and lease agreements. And so we're just going to let this go. And while this is going, just want to, traditionally we would have to go into like maybe the object manager. Let's think about what kinds of fields we would expect from this response. Rental properties probably have some kind of address associated with them. While we thought about it, we already got an output. So let's take a look at what the AI responded with. We have a property entity with an address, a type pick list, a status pick list. We have a tenant entity with contact details. That makes a lot of sense. There's a lease agreement entity with a start date and end date, a rent amount, that's a number, and two relationships to property and tenant. So that actually makes a lot of sense to me. In the middle here, you'll see the Atlas reasoning agent at work. So we have that input at the top there. It selects the topic depending on our scope and description from earlier. We invoke the generate data model action. And internally, that sends your prompt alongside with a bunch of Salesforce context into the LLM, and we do some post-processing on the response, which you could see here. And speaking of the response, let's go back to our data model. Let's imagine that this is pretty close, but we get an extra requirement afterwards. So let's imagine that we forgot the payment entity. So please also include a payment object to track rent payments with amount, date, and methods. So while this is going, let's imagine, ideally, we would remember the context of the conversation up until now. So ideally, we would just add this payment object to the existing data model that we've already gotten from the AI. So let's just, and there it goes. So let's take a look. We have the property entity. It looks unchanged. We still have the address and those two pick list values. We have that tenant entity with the contact details. We have the lease agreement with the duration and those relationships. Let's take a look at the payment entity. So there's an amount, the date, the method that we've prescribed, and then we also have that lookup to lease agreement. So that looks pretty good to me. That looks pretty accurate. Let's say we also want to just tell the AI to commit this plan. So let's tell the AI to create the metadata. And while this is spinning, let's think about how long it would take to do this manually. Let's imagine there's about 4 objects that we talked about, maybe 3 or 4 fields on each. That's about 12 custom fields. So 4 objects, custom fields, going into the object manager, clicking all those buttons, and we've already finished. So now this time we've invoked the create data model action. We've committed our plan. We've gotten a bunch of custom object and custom field IDs out that you could see here. And I'm just going to also go into the object manager, which I have open on a separate tab. So this is a brand new org. There's only standard objects in it. The only custom object we have is the knowledge object, which comes out of the box. So I'm just going to refresh this page. And we can see here there's that lease agreement entity. There's that payment entity. There's the property entity. And also that tenant entity. So let's go into the payments, because that's the last object that we talked about. And let's take a look at those fields, and we should expect to see the fields that we generated. So there's the amount field, there's the date, there's the method, and that lookup to lease agreement. So that's actually pretty good. In a couple of minutes, we planned a whole data model, and we executed on it. There was no clicks, no spreadsheets, just a natural conversation. And so this was a recorded demo. I have the original org here that we used to record it. I want to see if this would work real time. So I'm not sure if the conference Wi-Fi will let us do this, but that's the exact same prompt that we put in earlier. And
I think also the key point here, right, is we showed you what it looked like with an agent builder where you would be configuring and testing, but the idea is once this agent is live, now you have it in the flow of work. Whether you're in just CRM homepage or within setup, you can work with this agent and go through the flow as well. And there you go. Back to you, Jackie.
There you go. And this actually looks pretty close to what we saw in the demo. And so I also want to show you a little bit of a flow diagram of how this works internally. So I talked a little bit about the prompt, the topic, the action, which is the generate data model action. Once I mentioned earlier that we send the original prompt into the LLM alongside a bunch of Salesforce context. This is something that we're still working on, what exactly that Salesforce context is. RAG means retrieval augmented generation. So we're working with Data Cloud. We're trying to see if we could integrate your org's metadata into the LLM as well. Ideally, we would get back a combination of net new custom objects and also existing objects on your org. And so after the LLM gets that prompt and gives us a response, we have a quick validation layer. And then once you get the response, the data model, today we showed you a list of entities and fields. We're looking into UI UX options of how to better present that information to you. Maybe it's inline editing, maybe it's an ERD. And once you are okay with that data model, we go ahead and commit it with the create schema metadata action, which internally just calls our schema APIs. It's the same APIs that power the object manager UIs. It's the same APIs that power the metadata API. It's been actually a little bit challenging porting that over to work with LLM use cases, so that's also something that we're working on. And once those schema APIs run, your metadata is created. Wow, that was quick. Back to you, Gonzalo.
All right. Can we give Jackie a round of applause? I know that seems like a very simple use case, but it is a huge time saver, and she put a ton of work to make that demo work, and we're excited to keep working on this to get this out to all of you. As we're getting closer here to wrapping up, just want to walk you through what we're envisioning in terms of the roadmap for this data modeling agent. So come this upcoming summer release, we're going to be piloting this out. We want to get in front of customers to get feedback. The actions that we'll be working on are the two you saw in the demo today, right? First one's generating that actual data model, and then the second one's creating that schema metadata. What we're going to be supporting is the custom objects, simple field types, and also lookup relationships like you saw. We're going to be going out of the box with some basic grounding where we're going to leverage prompt engineering and using some of that existing metadata. And then, like you saw, we're working on initial set of UI, how to display that, as well as error handling and validation and whatnot. As we look forward more to GA, we're going to add more actions. I think the key one here is adding update, so not just being able to create net new, but also update existing. Along with that, the ability to do impact analysis as you're making those updates to understand what changes you're making. We're going to be adding support for more complex field types, as well as additional relationship types like master detail, and the ability to do junction objects. The other very interesting piece, which has been somewhat of a hard technical problem, I'm sure as others are working with unstructured data, whatnot, is, like Jackie said, leveraging Data Cloud and really doing more advanced grounding, leveraging all the existing metadata in your org, as well as unstructured data that we're going to be bringing in, different documentation that's really going to make this agent more and more powerful. And with that, we're going to be enhancing the UI and just the overall validation and error handling. That way, it's useful for you. Beyond that, it's really going to be based on your feedback. So with that, for those who have your phones out, if you want to be an early adopter and start giving us feedback on this, scan this QR code. It'll lead you to a Google form. We'll work closely with you all to give you early access. Because at the end of the day, this is a brave new world for a lot of us. We're working with AI, and some stuff's going to work, some stuff's not going to work. So we want to hear it from you, hear your use cases, and then we can kind of adopt and build from there. With that, I'll leave you with some key takeaways. One is highly recommend everyone become an Agent Blazor champion. We've been hard at work within Trailhead to develop a lot of content. I recently completed this as well, so if you're new to AI, want to learn more, just generative AI, also everything we're doing around Agentforce, highly recommend this, because in the future, if you want to create your own agents, this is the place to go. There is another theater session later today talking about the setup, agent for setup, which is going to be leveraging some of our capabilities along with other ones. So that'll be another interesting session to see what additional kind of setup-related jobs to be done are going to be available via that agent. And then last but not least, always please make sure to connect with your fellow peers and join the Agent Blazor community. And with that, we'll be available here to the side with any questions you may have. And if you do have time, feel free to give us some feedback. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.